Welcome to the Divine Connection Podcast. I'm your host, Christina Aroche, and together we are walking the path of discovering your true self and the alignment with your soul. Through these conversations, you will experience a deeper level of connection with yourself and the universe, and most importantly, you will trust in your spiritual journey ahead. Let's begin. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Divine Connection Podcast. Today, we are going to talk about creating a brighter future for our children. And I'm really excited to dive into this conversation. First of all, because I feel like this applies to everyone. Doesn't matter if you have children or not, this conversation is for you. And one of the biggest reasons why I believe that is because I believe that the children of the earth belong to all of us. So the children that are here growing up now, they are the future generation. They are the future of this planet. They are the future of humanity. And so whether or not you are actually raising or have raised children or grandchildren, this is for you, because regardless of that, who we are and how we live our lives has a direct impact to the planet and to the earth and to the development of humanity. And what I'm going to be talking about in today's episode is going to impact how you show up in the world as a whole, regardless of whether or not you have children. So I hope that you listen to this episode, and I would love to hear from you at the end what stood out to you the most, what really impacted you the most, and what you're going to take away from this episode. So I'm really excited to dive in. So let's get into this. And I want to start off by, first of all, sharing how the idea for this episode even came to be in the first place, which for me, it was actually reflecting on my life right now and where I'm at, which, if you don't know, I am in the thick of it right now in terms of actually raising children and being in a place where, I'm just in it in terms of early childhood parenting. And I have a 3-year-old and an 8-month-old. So they're little kids, and, there's a lot of demands when it comes to being a parent in general, but also with small children. And so what happened is that I just, living my everyday life, doing the mom thing, all the things, I was, just thinking about, my kids and me and our relationship, and also just really noticing and being aware of the different things that I notice about, especially my older one who's 3, because she has her own, personality now, and thoughts and discussions and asking questions and just all the things, which is really amazing to observe. And just in observing her patterns and the things that she says and her personality, I really am starting to see how there's the reflection of myself. I'm like, oh, wow, like that's kind of how I am, or that's probably how I was when I was her age. I don't really remember everything about me at all when I was 3. And so seeing her and reflecting on, oh yeah, that's probably how I was. Or, seeing, oh, that's probably how my husband was when he was little, or parts of him that I see reflected in her. And it was just really interesting to me. Like, I look at it from this perspective of just being very curious and just observing and just noticing and being like, oh, wow, that's interesting to recognize that and to see that and to see what she has taken on from me unconsciously, or from him, or, how she views the world. And that, of course, became a direct mirror for my own self-reflection. And that's really where I want to go with this, is our own self-reflection and how we become aware of our own patterns, our thoughts, how we show up. And so I'm very lucky and privileged to have the opportunity to have this little mirror that I see and have this deep relationship with every single day, and just seeing this reflection to me. And this became a direct mirror for my own self-reflection, like I said, and helping me to really look at myself and understanding what patterns have I taken on, or what I see within myself, what I do, how I behave, what I think, that has been passed down to me from my own lineage, right? And so this is something that I've just been observing and witnessing and noticing just within me. And from that, the questions that I started to ask myself were, well, what are the patterns that I want to change? What are the things that I see within me and how I show up, or what I'm thinking, or how I'm behaving, that don't actually serve me, or that I can clearly see is not mine, but that I've taken on from observation of the people around me and growing up and, family and all of that kind of stuff. And then it turned into, what do I want to change, and how do I want to go about doing that? And this is where this connection to how we show up and who we are and who we choose to become has a direct impact in the world. At the end of the day, we are all here. One of the biggest, greatest divine purposes that we all hold is that we are here to support the evolution of this planet and of humanity. We are here to support the new paradigms that are coming in, the higher level of consciousness, the awareness to our spiritual truth and our connection to the divine. It all happens in terms of how we show up. That's where it starts. And so that's why I mentioned at the beginning of this episode that regardless of whether or not you have kids, this is an opportunity for you to take a moment and take some time to reflect for yourself. How are you showing up? What are the unconscious patterns that you are continuing to follow? What are the things that you are maybe, still entertaining in terms of habits, behaviors, patterns, etc., that deep down inside of you aren't actually part of how you want to continue? And so this is an opportunity for us to take that time to reflect and to recognize these patterns and recognize these behaviors and things that we do that have been passed down to us, and to also recognize that we are here to transcend those. And I know that sometimes when we think about this, what, we've quote unquote inherited from our lineage, or, the environment that we grew up in or whatever, and there's a temptation to put ourselves in a victimhood energy, like that's the reason why I'm like this now, or that's the way I am, and that's just how it is. And I invite you to empower yourself and to see that actually the lineage that you come from and the patterns that you have observed within yourself, that you've changed within yourself, that you continue to transcend within you, you are actually meant to do that. That was part of your inheritance, quote unquote, and it's part of your greater purpose in terms of that greater divine plan that I mentioned, where we are here to usher in these new paradigms and to create a better world for our children. And the only way that we can, the best way that we can change that and support the future generations is by looking at what is the mark that we're leaving behind? What is the energetic imprint that we are leaving behind? And to understand that even though we can probably all list 1,000 things that are wrong or that have held us back, or, if only it wasn't like this for me or for my family or whatever, I challenge you to look at it as part of your superpower or part of your greater mission. I challenge you to look at it as part of you were meant to transcend that. You were meant to overcome that. That if you are living it right now and you are aware of these patterns or becoming aware of them, becoming aware of these different ways of being, or whatever the case may be, that it's not a hindrance to you, but it's actually part of what's going to elevate you. It's part of what's going to support you in who you are meant to become. Nothing happens by accident. Everything happens on purpose. And so when we can recognize that our lineage and what we have inherited in terms of our blood, our DNA, in terms of our unconscious patterns, all the things, that when we can see that all of that was actually part of our continued development and growth, that we're taking this on so that we can become better, so that what we leave behind on this earth is better, then we've done our job. And so when we can focus in on that and support ourselves in that, then that's where we're really, stepping into the greater calling for each of us, every single one of us as individuals, to elevate humanity and to support the evolution of this planet. And I know that many of you can see, the different world events that happen, the different experiences that people go through, everything that we are going through as a collective, really. And recognize that these are old paradigms and old ways of being and systems that are not working, and they are not going to be sustainable for us to continue to try and move forward in those systems. And so part of this work, what I've talked about, that's linked directly to our individual lineages and our individual patterns that we are transcending, it contributes to the greater overall shift that is happening in the world. The old paradigms, the old systems, the old beliefs, the ways of doing things that are breaking down right before our eyes and that are calling us forward into something new. And so the way that we all get to step into that is by recognizing what that is, how that filters down into an individual level. And so what we have to do is trust that whatever is coming up in this moment, whatever you've been noticing within yourself, whatever you've been reflecting on, and if you haven't been, that's okay. You can start now. You can start reflecting on this now. That as you start to reflect on this and recognize, oh yeah, that's a pattern. That's an anxious thought that I do, or a behavior that I do, or this is a pattern in response to fear or in response to whatever kind of situation. And what we do is we trust that what comes up, whatever we're triggered in these moments, whatever we recognize, that it's coming up to be transformed, and that we have the opportunity every single moment to make the choice to change, to choose something different, to correct our thoughts. And that's part of it. This isn't about being perfect. This isn't about, okay, now I have to live my life perfectly or be perfectly, in line with the higher consciousness or this way of thinking, not allowing my ego to come in. It's not about being perfect at it at all, because we aren't and we never can be. That's part of our humanity. But what it is recognizing that we have the free will. Free will is on our side. We have the free will to choose, to decide, to not be bound by those patterns, to not be bound by the limitations that we might feel in this moment. That's not actually who we are, but we must choose that. So in choosing something different, that is how you break the pattern. That is how you break those chains. And so when it comes to this ancestral energy that we are talking about, when we're breaking the chains, when we're breaking the patterns, when we're choosing something different, it's not that we are shaming our ancestors, or we're not saying like, I can't believe you left me with these patterns and with this generational trauma and all of these things. How annoying, how terrible. And I know that we can have moments of feeling like that. However, like I mentioned earlier, this is an opportunity for you to look at those things and to say, yeah, I was chosen for this because I was meant to transcend these. This is coming up into my awareness right now. I'm seeing this right now. I'm feeling this pull to change and to be different and to choose something different because I can, because I have that free will, because I have that choice, because I have the opportunity right now. This is coming into my awareness because it was meant for me to transcend that. And we get to break those chains and break those patterns. And not only does it influence then our individual lives, but it influences the generations to come. It influences the planet, the collective, and it also supports our ancestors and that lineage. And it's almost like this domino effect. That's how I see it. It's this domino effect where when that chain is broken within our own self, our ancestors feel it as well, and it supports their in their spiritual form, their evolution and growth, and how they continue on their soul's path. And so it's a really cool concept that I just love diving into. And like I said, my personal circumstances right now with seeing these children in front of me who are my flesh and blood, and seeing it firsthand, for me, my personal experience of being able to witness that has really reflected back to me how I would choose to show up differently and how I choose to use my free will to shift and change my thoughts and change my patterns. And so a really simple way that I want to share with you that you can start doing this is it's literally in the moment, right? Noticing and trusting what comes up for you in terms of a trigger, in terms of your awareness. When you notice, oh, I'm doing that. And that's just like what my mom would do, right? As an example. Or I'm noticing that I'm saying these things and that this is what I always heard as a child growing up. And in that moment, choosing and deciding, is this what I want to continue? Do I want to continue that way of thinking, that habit, that behavior, whatever the case may be? Do I want to continue that? Is it helpful? Does it serve me? Yes or no? And if the answer is no, then in that moment, let me just choose again. So in that moment, as you notice your thought or your behavior or your default reaction to something, in that moment, as you notice it and you recognize, wait a second, this is a pattern. No, I don't want to continue it. Let me press rewind for a second and choose again. And that's the power of choosing again. That's the power of recognizing that it's not about being perfect. It's simply about your awareness. And when you are aware in the moments, and sometimes we're not, and that's okay, but when you are aware and you have that moment of using your free will to choose something different, you do that and you practice that. And again, you're not going to be perfect at it, but you get to do it over and over and over again. And trust me, you're going to have many opportunities to practice this. And as you practice it to choose again, then you start to change the behavior within yourself. And then it's no longer a default, whatever the conditioning was within you to, immediately have these anxious thoughts or this anxious behavior. Instead, you stay in a state of peace and calm. And from there, everything else unfolds differently. You have different options. You have different actions that you take. You have a different way of thinking about things. You're more receptive to divine solutions coming in rather than getting into a controlling behavior. And then I got to control this. So, it completely blocks us from the greater divine unfolding. So you can see already how there's this ripple effect that starts to happen when we choose differently. And so in that choosing differently, that is where we get to create a new way of being. That is where we get to bring in these new paradigms, these new behaviors, these new ways of being and of thinking. And like I said, it's not just, I'm going to just change everything tomorrow. It's a continuous part of our journey. It's a continuous part of how we show up, how we grow, how we evolve. And you can start with that today. So, like I said, this is about self-reflection. This is about self-awareness. And in those moments, utilizing your free will, recognizing that your free will is your superpower. And, I'm going to change this. I'm going to shift the way that I think about this. And so I've done this many times where literally as I'm thinking something, I stop myself. I'm like, wait a second. No, why am I saying that about myself? I remember so clearly before, years ago when I forget what I was doing, but I just remember that I said to myself like, "Oh, you're such an idiot." I said that to myself. And I remember stopping myself in that moment and being like, "Wait, why am I calling myself an idiot? Why am I saying that to myself? Why am I being so mean to myself?" And in that moment, literally, as I witnessed myself saying that to myself, I said, "No, that's not true. I'm not an idiot. I love you. It's okay if you made a mistake," or I forget what the situation was, but whatever the thing was, I like pressed the rewind button and chose differently. So I said it and I did it. I did the thing. And then I was like, whoa, wait a second. No. Rewind. And then I redid the scenario. And I said, no, that is not true. You're not an idiot. And I've done the same thing many times. Same thing when, let's say, someone triggers you or someone says something, and in that moment, I want to react a certain way. And I notice my body just starting to feel either anxious or upset or whatever it is. And I notice my thoughts and I notice myself spiraling. And then I'm like, wait a second, is this actually true? Why are you going this direction? And instead of continuing down the spiral or then, saying something or doing something that's in line with that pattern, I stop it right there and I say, no. This isn't something to be upset about, or this isn't something to be anxious about. Everything's okay. And I ask to be shown a different perspective. I ask to be shown a different way of seeing things, a different way of reacting to something. And the better word instead of reacting is really responding. How can I respond differently to this? And so, like I said, it's not about being perfect, but it's about utilizing your free will in that moment. And so using this practice every day to support yourself is really going to shift a lot in terms of how you view yourself, recognizing and just being more self-aware in general and not falling for the conditioned patterns that we have all inherited in some shape or form. We get to use our free will to transcend those and understand that we were chosen for that, understand that we have the power to do that. And in doing so, we get to change not just our life, but also the future for the next generation and the next generation after that, and all future generations. And so thinking of it as now those future generations are having a much clearer foundation to build upon. And from there, they're going to continue that on for their future generations. And so this is all part of our bigger purpose. It's part of the greater divine plan, is how we choose to change those patterns and behaviors, starting with ourselves. So that is what I invite you to reflect on. That is the process I invite you to start with yourself. And I'm also really excited to share that if you want to go deeper with this work and really understand more about your ancestral lineage, connecting with your ancestors and understanding how they're actually here to now help you and support you, to understand the connection between your mind and your body, and understanding how you can use your connection with your body to support this breaking of the pattern, breaking of the chains, really emerging into your true self and who you are here to be, to no longer feel held back by these patterns that keep showing up, that feels like it's really hard to break those patterns or break those chains. I invite you to join me inside of my course called Ancestral Alchemy. The doors are open right now for a limited time. And right now, for the next few days, from the recording and posting of this podcast episode, I have an early bird special that is available only for the next few days. Yes, it involves a private one-on-one session with me. So if you are interested in diving into this topic of your ancestors and alchemizing this energy into something that is going to fuel you and support you with your movement forward, I invite you to join me. All of the details can be found in the show notes below this episode. And of course, if you have any questions about this course, then you are always welcome to reach out to me. And I cannot wait. This is such a powerful, powerful program. It has literally, I've heard from people who have taken this in the past telling me, you know what, I revisited the Ancestral Alchemy course and this other thing now has been transcended or transmuted. And so it's one of those things where you get to use this, you have lifetime access to the course, but you get to use it during these certain key points in your life when you recognize and see, oh, this is a moment of really learning how to work with my ancestors and utilizing the tools that I teach you inside of the course to support the breaking of the chain and to support you with transcending the patterns and using energy healing and the connection with the angels and to the divine and with your ancestors to support the energetic transformation that you go through, and then understanding how it translates into your body and the embodiment of this healing. So I cannot wait to have you in the course. You can find all of the details below. And that is it for today's episode. So leave me a comment below. Let me know how this lands with you. Let me know what you are going to choose to do moving forward, how this has supported you. I cannot wait to hear from you. And as always, I'm sending you so much love and angel blessings, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye. Thank you once again for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. And if you want to learn more about the Divine Connection podcast, you can go to ChristinaAroche.com/podcast and learn about how you can be featured on the show.